Actually, I cut some 2017 curves.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I might see Are you starting right now?
Yeah.
You should probably wait. I'm like finishing a sentence. You should probably wait.
You should just send it to me.
Okay.
It's like.
It's like 8 o'clock. Can I take your
I don't trust them.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, I thought Bronx started at 8:30. Okay. No, it's not.
Definitely not. Okay, there we go. Does everyone have it?
Did you get it?
Hmm?
Did you get it?
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Okay, Preetham, you ready? Cool.
I didn't get the doc, but I don't need it.
Okay.
I get it.
You want me to hold on?
No.
Awesome.
I don't need to do the docs, so be clear on our themes.
Okay. Welcome to the hegemony of the sign, the modern-day surveillance state, the endless anti-queer battleground we like to call the United States federal government, and fundamentally, the super-panoptic system of modern control known as homo-nationalism, a mode of social domination, premised on the erasure of queer deviance and radical otherness to continue to drive towards the liberalism of incorporation, and visibility rendering queerness a tool used to prove the redeemability of the system within the structure. The very goals of confidentiality are far screened only maintain homo-nationalist representation that liquidates difference for 17. Homo-nationalism may be used to accept the subject levels related the relation between racialized communities and coherence communities through homo-national expectation reinforce the non-destructional version of queerness that reproduces the privilege call for possible words to place the United States, the pretense of force for everyone else's future United States, what queer is and how forms to feel not like the effect of rendering queer body cells where I think from location, war, and colonization, or quotidian constant life, we need to rethink the United States in a permanent state of war and being symptomatic of the centrality of the U.S. settler colonial archive, homo-national and traumatized man, queer to be productive by the government to mobilize the positive historical function of the struggle over civilization to be oriented, random global solidarity, moving the nation, marking the liberal economic function in the service of the reproduction by political population, racism, disciplining, and deployment service problematic against numerous instances of violence of rights, discourse, dismantling of the defense of marriage, acting the same day that enforcement prevents the literary rights that were repealed, opening the door to racism, class-based franchise men do national and health policies repealed in the same day U.S. Senate, but all of the DREAM Act federal legislation criminalizing hate crime classifications that attach to a military appropriation bill legislation without getting risk of militarization, police forces, surveillance, harassment of people, economy, populations, cohere, the government statistical information move targets the burden of production by objects, state surveillance, and the port of guide being subject of state protection, homo-nationalism, highlights how liberal rights, discrimination, and anti progress that current population's access to citizenship at the expense of the partial expulsion for those rights of other populations, rising legal consumer recognition subjects, and the expansion of state priority surveillance, lots ensuring the respectability, homosexual self-relationship, pathologized sexuality, virtual others, and the very active debate instrumental for immigrant queer bodies, confidentiality, sustains mode of communicative rationality that reeks of homo-nationalist ideology, utilizing media representation to selectively permeate images of respectable queer surveillance of identity. This is not merely a question of confidentiality. Surveillance does not matriculate between the public and private divide, but instead of cultivating such categories exist simultaneously creating networks of control mobilized for anti-queer purposes. Diaz and A. Poor Muslims quoting on legislation inclusion and cultural code sexuality and policing appropriate forms of citizenship sexuality has been mobilized to shake self-will. You have allies the U.S. self-part acceptance else particularly you'll say paranoid acceptance for the violence against but most foreign population values to meet U.S. workers and budgets are by political preservation non-policy produce diversion creating subject to racial national minorities mobilizing of cultural difference serve dominant population homo-nationalism and particular forms of sexuality to foster empire opposites the regulatory script normative fetishization creates subjects of coordination techniques mark somebody to make them susceptible nations start deploying protecting on police and preponderance in the metro sexual figure and media representation highlights how example forms of incentive appeal to newly population search characteristics characteristics for instance of respectability demonstration cost mobilization of sexuality policing mechanisms false identity prostitution censorship and insecure reason for with monumental liberatory currency creates magical kinds of domesticity and intimacy for protecting domestic market limitation decisions for minorities are costing their surveillance policy has always been fleeting for the subject of race entire populations queer persons in the impact is psychosis the attempt of political utilize the will to knowledge is traumatic his demands for political rationality are incapable of dealing with melancholy expunges the psyche and causes object death lens 16. Knowing too much can be traumatic, it can lead to psychotropic trauma issues when the world does reflect back to the subject morning. I should strong away from psycho to be allowed to be a form of movement refusal, to be held by dominant culture side, lacking your excessively erasure of melancholy, because we need the illusion of the psyche, we are transformed into dead objects, except primarily reaching beyond cultural television, making space for new forms of being that were previously unrecognized sense of science fiction, commonized social theory that represent subjectivities, not yet imagined for Goni, subject knows too much or too much for the social design initially in the future, is but a band trope in the present saturated blast of pornographic media, social theory, political manifesto, must blow open cultural intelligibility, discovering otherness within ourselves, we're releasing able to breathe through the enigmatic states, maybe revisited Westbrook forward is non-relevant with larger cultural codes of gender in a place and thus as one AC enables queer confidentiality by referring to queer suicide terrorists who prefer the line explosion of self-sacrifice with a bomb in favor of unsettling the violent definitions of subjectivity which suture together identity. This is a complete refusal of Western notions of being. We are machinic organisms, metal and environment together in a messy fusion. The suicide terrorist resonates as the figure of anti-normativity means understanding from rational to irrational intensities of life, obliterating the being of the human subject in favor of core becoming the role of the balance design, the ethicalities, debates, communicative form. So what say you accept the call, the one to see and engage in a criminal implosion, transform the resolution itself into a ballistic weapon that turns order to disorder. Poor. No 7. W per suicide bomber trepidation consequently nominating indicates of all flesh shapes understanding ethically illegit violence. It's clear contracting clean suicide bombs body machine through mental and flesh organic and inorganic death that obliterates a Hegelian self with their dialect of self-annihilation. It's the ultimate form of resistance to self-preservation to the martyrdom, giving life to the future political struggle. Suicide bombers are a sign of life that makes the kitchen life a possibility for reconciliation opposites through their collapse of sustainability, leading spatial distribution between discrete biological bodies, technological particles come together, flow off each other, never stable, defined to continual advance as object in multiple states, the intimacy body with body, spatial attack, individuality, the body instead we have the body weapon that can transform his or our body into a mass hydro weapon, the body to transform the weapon to a blessed senses, body, the inside and the outside, transformation through vibration, the new side, forever multiplying enableability here and there is due to the creative world interruption, suicide bound projectiles to be isolating every which way, queer self-shape for identity, race, and sexuality, the astral to the creativity of the suicide bound, the solution of self-analysis, only fixed absent work of self-analysis, produces damage, shown the rationality, recognize the rubric of good versus evil, contagion, infection, transmission, brain, not meaning, and we offer this space a queer convivial gathering and becoming with the possibility of escaping the systems of categorization, which constitute debate in the world more broadly, Cohen and Renlo. And 6, we have kind of people think I'm this, I'm that, by thinking in straight fluid terms, I do know what I am, not a question of being this or that, but of becoming a human. The entire world constitutes non-anthropomorphic, fully connected machinery, desire, separate boyfriends, capitalist, medical communities, animal body intensities, and ceaseless movement, reject determinative endings, especially when they fix and place in their right to value, vigor, affirmative life, and the cosmos movement, desire, namely God, bodies, intensive particles, the order of stars, the passion of animals, grand molecular vitals, and queer spaces, suddenly ceases to stand, find a resting place, available only by sounds, the Pink Panther, imitates nothing, paints the world in its color, becoming world, becomes imperceptible, asignifying max, its rupture, its own life, like the Pink Panthers, imagined and produced by unholy queers from the 1990s, fed up with wild, the New York State, actually actors coming to act up and creation, organized patrols, and peak gathers, they fought so hard to take back the streets, rise math, multiple comes to multiple points, deploy tactile identity particles, connected by new variety, minority, and political products represent the war machine, produces connections across space and time, the war machine, proliferates African design relations, production, content, line, flight, away from the state apparatus, war machine functions, producing relation among body, self, out of limited, minority, movements, and creating novel coalitions. Market novel coalitions.
Sorry, which card was that?
The Cohen and Remley card.
This one?
Yeah, at novel coalitions.
Okay, so nothing below.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Is debate anti-queer?
This would be anti-queer in its current form, yeah.
So then why are you here?
Why am I here?
Why do you choose to engage in debate if it's anti-queer?
Right, so our argument is that we're an implosive strategy within this debate space, one that uses the form of debate to be able to prove how it's anti-queer, the mode of shaming the space. Our arguments contextualized to mean injecting modes of rationality with the process of becoming.
Right, that's very interesting. If you can use the mode of debate to try and implode debate, why can't you use the anti-queer state to implode the state? It seems like the same logic is applicable for why you engage in an anti-queer debate space as to why you could engage in an anti-queer state.
No. It doesn't mean, like, an implosive strategy doesn't necessarily mean using those structures, i.e.
Right,
just
but
like
you're
bow down
specifically
before
here
the law.
debating and you're
Right, but we have debated in a way
changing.
we have debated in a way that is deemed irrational, that is deemed by society in this space is something that should not
How is
occur.
it irrational if there's 3 of us sitting in a room who is able to flow all of it and we're able to come up with a decision?
Well, you got me. I spoke in English. Our 1AC and the attempt of the 1AC is not to not speak in English, but to speak in a different language. When Puar is talking about unintelligibility, it's a possibility of sort of escaping lines of light in a way that produces an action that cannot be categorized by those grids. The suicide bomber is something that cannot be organized into Western systems of rationality because it's something the intent of the suicide terrorist can never be known. It's something that is fundamentally irrational.
Right, that's fine. So what would you say to queer people like Christine Hallquist, who is the first transgender woman to ever win a primary in Vermont? Or people like Jared Polis in Colorado, one of the first gay men to come into Congress and advocate for gay people.
Right.
What would you say of their experiences when they're actively trying to use
Well,
this
I think first of all, a distinction is that our argument is not about experience; it's a structural analysis of how power operates.
Right. So
Even when
that's
those,
right.
yeah.
So I completely understand that. My question is, how does that structural analysis interact with the specific experiences of people who have chosen to use the state to fight for liberation?
For sure. So Puar says that there's a sort of grid of intelligibility that creates distinctions between what is and is not normative. Our argument is that that even when those minor reforms happen, they're always already followed up by more modes of state violence, which is our first piece of Puar evidence.
Right. So when you're talking about state violence, are you talking about like police violence specifically? Could you be more specific?
Multiple modes of violence. It can include things like police violence or
Right.
a
So
litany of
I
examples.
guess a better question is, how do you differentiate between people like Jared Polis and Christine Hallquist who are trying to do the best for the state, and then people like racist police officers. It seems like racist police officers don't define the entirety of the government as a structure.
Wait, what do you mean? How do I make a distinction?
Right, you claim that like all of the government is anti-queer, but I've given you examples of specific people in the government
It's not all of the government. It's anti-queer. It's a structural basis upon which that government is formed. Is fundamentally anti-queer and is something that reproduces violence even when reforms happen.
Is progress possible?
Is progress possible within the current system of the state? We'd say no.
Okay, is it possible outside of the state? Do we have 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Keep going. Yes, sir. Is it possible outside of the state?
Yeah, we've affirmed a queer convivial gathering, which is an instance of progress in this space.
Okay, queer suicide bombing. Are you physically bombing people?
Obviously not. Wait, what do you mean?
Can you give me a tangible example of someone enacting a queer suicide bombing?
This one AC.
Okay.
I think another example of this.
Yeah,
Ronnie read a transfeminist pathology app
Okay,
at
can you give me an
Loyola.
example outside of debate?
William Morgan and Joe Krakoff read a queer suicide
Right, I
app.
understand that there's
James
like separate
Ballison.
debate. Can you please answer my question?
Like, these are all material examples. I
Right,
think
yeah, I'm asking about an example
your
outside
question-
of
your
a real
question-
person, a non-debater, and
a real person are all those people not real people?
That's not what I'm claiming. I'm claiming, can you
You
give me an
literally said a
example?
real person.
Debate is far removed from reality. You just spread the entire app. I'm asking, can you give me
Yes,
like,
I think we're
person
encapsulating your
enacting-
idea that there's a distinction between pre and post fiat. What we do in this space is material and does matter, and that's our point.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking, can you give me an example of a common person not involved in debate
I think I'm
enacting
a
a queer
common
suicide
person.
bombing?
I think I'm a common person.
I'm asking, can you give me a non-debate example? I don't know why you're not just
Right.
giving me one. It's
First-
a simple question.
Right, so I think that queer suicide bombing is not like an embodied positionality. It's a metaphysical way of being in the world by affirming becoming. I think there are a couple examples. People like George Jackson, who at prison didn't like sort of
George Jackson, okay.
cede to political authority, or Andy Warhol, Kara White, who used non-representational artwork to be able to depict Black history in a way that was unintelligible to Western
Thank you.
systems of
I
rationality.
have 3:28 remaining. Is there any way I could use your timer?
Yeah, for sure.
I understand.
So good. Oh, I'm just gonna pull up my timer right here. Oh yeah, we can finish this if you want. I don't care.
How do you make it shorter?
Oh, I got it.
Alright, I'm sending it.
How many off is that?
2.
Okay. Hold it up. Okay.
Can you just cannot see?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, is everyone ready?
Yep.
A interpretation of affirmative defense within the implementation of a hypothetical world of a policy action by a legislative body resolved. Here's the wording of the resolution implies an action of a policy. Words and phrases 14 definition the word resolved by Webster's first opinion determination by resolution. Similarly, of course, the word enacting to establish by law and violation. You do not define a policy action now. C is the standard first limit second act is being by countering around decides yourself as he under fact terms. You can always shoot deadly responses by saying you don't implement that burns coordinated ground strong. Strikes into fairness and round because then first to be under an absolute framework and always vulnerable to unfavorable time cut off from when I already started conflict to reasons why queer education is good. You took away key util grounds since my confidence to be competitive if you don't implement that. We can still get queer education in the world of the interpretation is better since we can see the contrast between queer education and utilitarianism. The point is policy education always philosophical education is more tangible to our lives today. Looking at how the words define the U.S. legal system is better since the system that creates rules that govern our daily lives. Words and phrases constantly up to a source of legal definitions which read my enterprise the strongest. Link to the real dynasty and double line. Very point topical version of the app. Points which side solves pure access to special it is and negative. There's a really great topical version of the app. It could be legal protection for people with HIV status, to be confidential, or even legal penalties for people who out queer people. Now, endpoint is procedural. The topic is chosen by a neutral third party which we should abide by. Viewpoint is dogma doesn't need to be open to debate the other side. Climate matters and gun launchers, even white supremacists shut out opposing views. That limits your role of the ballot here debate. Pluralism requires that individuals and non-opposing beliefs by understanding that universal convictions are not universal. Competitive academic debate students must understand different arguments well enough to act something happens in future debates. Often competitors and strong cases exist for community previously discarded to try to be raised into the city attitude that serves to uphold work against fundamentalism. Brings down dogmatic views to check against violence. Now voter fairness and voter the only way to prevent oppression. In debate, witness 14, bracket for clarity. The judges know about it, who is subject to more unfairness than lies. Let's do fairness. Let's debaters count on a reason to re-experience real unfairness than lies. You count on a reasoned evaluation based on merit. Rejecting fairness from surroundings that space is arbitrary as the world. Debaters experiencing adverse oppression expect to win on their merits. Rejecting fairness is one more way to victimize them and making an argument we assume the validity of fairness and within why watch is judge arbitrarily reject anti-blackness arguments because they didn't personally agree with them. Education to voters since the reason schools fund base job fair. Point to say, prices should continue to rectify times that are very no RBI system logical here on the top of the meeting and improvement to the reason should be point. Showing participators to win with reading huge scripts, these competing interests, they put disabilities arbitrary, will be set the right line to let's just use police best reading, become disability classes for competing interests, he tilts away, and keep your offense and see when here participators get away from peace and ladies and strategies with defense up during that theory must be performed as the highest layer of take. That means no cross applications for substance or substance takeouts in theory. Point checking abuse would be impossible. To check any abuses, you cannot leverage the substance of argument against the K would lead to absurd conclusions like we should disregard all findings because that somehow minimize distinction. Viewpoint conflicts with your POC distinctions because you donate more money to charity doesn't mean you should win utility that. Same applies to K just because you propose a new way contesting your resolution doesn't mean you should win. C point is fiat as a loser. There's nothing that's actually possible philosophy that actually changes the world. There's no reason you're reading the absolute radically transformative that should allow you to start abuse claims and all we can do around is check and not abuse only theory does that. Now cut the last explanation. Next up, identity politics is a tool that capital system uses to enforce its own headship. I mean capitalism is a root cause of oppression as education minority groups and only thrive in a system where tiny minority rules to the extent of majority. Smith 95 identity politics argues that white male workers benefit from oppression and the special oppression faced by women in days to weaken work or working serves to weaken workers' ability to fight back for working class illustrates oppression in theory schools have state or medical care oppression necessary to a system based on a tiny or both a tiny and minority in the sense of majority robbed oppression pro southern white workers to other wages lower than black workers in the north. The only beneficiaries of this inequality are the ruling class. Now cut the card there. Postmodernism is capitalist against the logical flux alternatives and fluidity perpetuates the market economy being packaged and sold in the real world to the ballot. Eagles and great postmodernism boldly hits the fluid multiple egalitarian into its binding the logic of capitalist marketplace China where we are witnessing the spectacular contradiction between an authoritarian political superstructure and a progressively capitalized economic base. How Western postmodern theory has arrived along with the latest shipment of critical exporting a philosophy of differences in both Western cultural alienation. Now the impact of psychic alienation capitalism forces individuals to be productive, killing value, life, and modifying their most basic interactions. The world about its unity through the lens of class consciousness. Rowan writes, the objectification of everything manifests in the psychological level, causing their proletariat perception of the self to be oppressed. Modification of all social relations demonstrates self-worth as class and class origin, society, courageous social relations, according to productive uses, form the alienation, agonizing them, represses their emotions, causes them to waste themselves by discouraging unproductive pleasure. Now the ultimate engagement of revolutionary critique of class society is the refusal to accept the inevitable cannot continuation status quo that negotiating with the same people in status quo to uphold the capitalist system. We need to allow the proletariat to chart their own path through once and for all from society. The sequencing question we need to do this first. Landscape or revolutionary critique of the industrial capitalist trade will be anarchist single circulation control us. But it is kind of we're determining with narrow freedom is how we can track this transform this cause this network is stretched, then people are falling through the cracks and these undesirables have nothing to lose. Opportunities for time not lacking the into and hand chapter over like the dock of the wildfire strikes revolutionaries and talk some express strong anti-war sentiments. Points of connection exist and we will refuse representation maintaining our autonomy of our struggle. Now cut the card. They're now going to be affirmative first. Your poor evidence. One, this doesn't prove that this system is the state is inevitable. We can't wish away. The state will always exist, which means I just think we ought to engage with it in a new way. Second is that you're in debate, which is anti-queer. The same reason why you're here trying to change its face is the same reason why you can work within the state to reform it. 3 term seeking the politicals proactively worse since there's no protection at all. For example, white people will be able to do whatever they want. There's no system of legal constraints. They can rape or lynch anyone they want, which is definitely a worse alternative. Fourth is we should use the state as a heuristic tool to help the people that currently exist. Also, fifth is that you should separate the few bad law and white supremacist lawmakers from the entirety of Congress and people like Christine Holocaust who are actually trying to improve the system, which proves that it is possible. Now your next argument or your DS argument, one term, this is offensive. Christine Holocaust, Jared Polis, and other people have been trying to actively reform the system. You're a 16-year-old telling them that this is somehow impossible. Do you feel comfortable walking up to the first transgender woman to ever run in Vermont and telling her that her work is hopeless because there's some sort of abstract notion of negativity? You shouldn't feel comfortable voting on that. Second term, negativity increases psychological violence as it reinforces the idea that we have nothing we can do, that there's no political change that is possible, which is really bad and re-entrenches the trauma that people face. 3 term, your strategy is inaccessible. People, for example, need food stamps and different things from the state. Even Malcolm X simulated a state-like structure, even though he hated it, so he could help his own population with proofs that the state can be used for good. Now your lens evidence about psychosis. One is the logic of people being dead. Is that queer people have actively refused the logic of social death, like Christine Holocaust, and for you to say that their experiences are invalid is for your theory to say that is offensive. Now your role of valid. First overview, your method is a bad thing. Your entire method is about unintelligibility, but the problem is that you ask Preetham to give you the win, which means it renders you intelligible, renders your strategy intelligible, and therefore it's contrary to your philosophy. Now your bar, but it's one term. This is going to be your logic of bombing is going to be co-opted by the alt-right. For example, Heather Heyer was literally murdered in sort of an anarchist situation where white supremacists clash with the left-wing protesters. This language is only going to be co-opted for the alt-right for their own agenda. 2 term, this increases the validity of the alt-right's claims of law and order. For example, when the civil rights protests were going on, people called for law, Nixon called for law although they're not valid, and therefore makes them seem justified, which is terrible. Now you're quoting Rambo that it's about convivial gathering versus that the alternative is preferable. For example, Black Lives Matter people lying in the street, or a rape victim at Columbia University carrying a mattress around campus. These are examples, or even Christine Hallquist engaging with the state, and Vermont, which has historically been super conservative. These are better examples that aren't founded in violence and aren't founded in the notion that we can never try to engage with the state, we can never try to engage with these institutions, which means that the alternative is preferable.
Cool. Okay, you ready? Alright, I guess my first question is, you make a bunch of arguments about how we can't be able to engage, or engaging, saying that we shouldn't engage the state is bad, and it like pathologizes people. I guess how are these arguments not linked to the alternative on the CAPK?
Right, yeah, so the CAPK alternative is not completely incompatible with usage of the state.
Okay, so what's the distinction there? How does
Right,
the
so
alternative
the alternative says that you can still engage with the state so long as it tries to fulfill some sort of class-based interest. Or,
how do we force the state to fulfill class-based interests?
right, so an example is really like a poor veteran, Nikki Sherrill, living in New Jersey, going to the state, recognizing and trying to serve her own people in her district that are poor and suffering.
Wait, how's
An
that?
example is like Tim Kaine going to the Senate, trying to pass laws that actively help the veterans in his own state that are suffering.
Okay,
These
when
are
is the capital system gonna end?
When is it going to end?
Yes.
I don't know. Do you want me to say like 10 years?
Well, like I'm asking how do we know when these systems will be gone? When we can be able to destroy them?
I would say that's the wrong question. It's not when we should be able to destroy them, but how.
Okay, then what strategies to come out of the 1NC?
Right, so the alternative provides strategies that either work within the state, like the 7 examples I just gave you of like different queer or gay lawmakers, or even poor lawmakers trying to help their own populations. Another example that I gave was on the affirmative, on your convivial gathering. I made a bunch of examples of people engaging in convivial gatherings, but not using this logic of queer suicide bombing, violence, and the necessity.
Wait, why is queer suicide bombing, or how does the 1EC defend violence?
Right, so your entire conception of queer suicide bombing is like the destruction of society. The claim that I'm making is that we can still have forms of resistance
Wait,
that aren't based on like some sort of anarchic
what part?
vision.
When did the 1EC forward an anarchical vision? What was
Yeah,
that
that was your Poir evidence, which says that we should literally destroy society and
vision? That's
enact
not what the
law.
court says. That's literally not
Your
what the court
entire
says.
philosophy is that a queer suicide bomber. Don't tell me that you don't defend some sort of like
Literally not
destructive
true.
view of what we should do.
That's fine. What's the warrant to deceive the political arguments?
Right, so I think the warrant would be probably Trump's election. A lot of people didn't go out and vote, and now look who our president is.
Okay, sure. It's fair. The negativity argument leads to trauma. How did the specific performance of the 1AC lead to trauma?
Right, so the argument that you make in your, I believe it was the Poir evidence? No, sorry, it was the Diaz evidence, is that this logic of inclusion and reform is problematic. The problem is when you abandon the notion of any reform that could ever happen, you reinforce this idea that like, oh, we're out of options and all we can do is just sort of like sit there and like engage in this queer suicide bombing that, you know, and so that's like a bad thing. It reinforces this sort of psychological trauma. And the systemic claims you're making about institutions as being wholly inaccessible are another testament to that.
Okay, cool. 5 minutes. the remaining. It's going to be case, topicality, the critique.
Are you reading anything new?
No. Okay. Everyone good?
No. Yes.
Okay. I affirm by turning the resolution to a ballistic weapon be a queer suicide terrorist and shatter static conception so heteronormative identity is saturated both in being reporting creating cruel attack in the state basis insecure vote after implode. This mode of communication and foster frequent reveals space of view and space is the only internal link to value life in the space built on queer death. There are two impacts. One total national and focus on instrumental form cycle and permeates images of respectable queers in the New scripts identity and body means after prerequisite deliberation. Two is psychosis. No political rationale and traumatic as it does reflect back to the self-reflex of queer deviant practices by treating them as dead objects without use value. You should reject the intent to be able to sustain this mode of communication dilemma. And they say that this is a no expression of our orientation towards instructions, even if they want to say not only need to be able to create endurance strategies to be able to be able to create modes of survivability, like the Pink Panthers act up. Those are examples like the code and Ramblin that said you drop them for God to prove that way. You help start means we can grow working in this way. No, or methodology implicit like Carol Walker, or using non-representational artwork in a way that was unintelligible to systems of white rationality of the Pink Panthers. George Jackson, those are all examples like even cross-examination. Now they say that white people can be able to rape or lynch people because we see the political one. Those politicals already see that was our first piece. More evidence talks about examples of how the Voting Rights Act was about how the state criminalized hate crimes against queer people only because that legislation was attached to a military appropriations bill that increased police power against black communities. Such sort of cruel optimism argument how the political is always already functionally anti-queer. You say you give a bunch of examples of people using the state. These are all you should ask them even if they win sort of political examples of how these things can create material change. The updated sort of theory of power about how queerness is always already defined as an objection or in opposition to modes of whiteness or modes of normative. You need to be able to be back on theory of power before you can be able to win that those minor changes have meaning within the political world. Otherwise, you shouldn't see back into a cruel lack of optimism arguments or linked to your negativity arguments because you are the one that re-entrenches modes of trauma. We don't say we are obviously not pure negativity. That's a poor evidence. We create the possibility for modes becoming within the space which solves these arguments. It also solves our social death arguments because we haven't made a social death argument. We made an argument about how the attempt to saturate debate with political rationality is bad. You say that we're intelligible. No, that was an answer to cross-examination. We are not just saying that we shouldn't speak English, rather it's a question of your orientation towards the structures of rationality, i.e. your argument is that the suicide terrorist is unintelligible because it's something that cannot be cohered within their systems of rationality. The already co-option arguments are methodologies, not radical protests. It's a survival strategy within this space, which means really topicality. Overview, we get to weigh the affidavits of Christ in the court form debate, their interpretation, making a content level claim that presumes to be ethical in the first place, means the outcome strategy because anyone says sustained nature of rationality is uniqueness where our intellectual base is good. You can simply not check abuse since you can weigh reasons why your model base is good against ours. B's abstraction turn 90 millimeter wave creates lots of barriers to wash away their complicity in attack queer dialects, create psychological violence, and links our stop to MC procedural fairness laws after substitution because the excluded through psychosis, which extends outside this realm of transaction of fairness because it's not unique of queer folk can access the content to be in the first place. D truth testing for screen people to prove their person exists, at least proves on about the line one on the term bid, counter term suicide bomb, their model way function permutation that solves our conviviality. Often we impact our definition of optimization as the same logic. The practice of DBA understands the world proof that DBA and suicide debate arguments are cruel optimism disad base about instrumental form of bad deeds and poor sacred bodies as well as being objects of violence because the operates by providing the illusion of rights to legitimate violence on other fronts. Faith in the system creates trauma and means your DBA and suicide debate arguments to solve 1% in the absence of no center or implosion of deliberate ignorance. Also, for evidence, the reason why the reforms they talk about solving is cruelly optimistic where we desire these things to happen one day never actually occur. Those are examples I gave at the top. There's also a molarity decide their position on one universal way to debate the level of control premise on reactive patriarch unpredictability that leads to lash on violence against that we say finds outside limits of debate. We are these that the universe is fundamentally and becoming then the attempt of worrying oneself towards stability. Bad there's a distance thing to have the opposite thinking for themselves. He said disembodied ethic or become more concerned with the impacts of the game naturally is often improved by people getting excited about Trump passing harmful policy because they gave them uniqueness right there to set the captive the role of valid. It's not that the ethicality of the base community form that comes first with our relationship subjectivity depends in the terms how we engage in modes of resistance. There's psychic alienation impacts of not meaning that was a psychosis argument. There's a permutation due with code and normal evidence gives examples of how we can have modes of political movements like the Panthers to be able to queer their modes of revolution. There's a purchase that's out there idea of single liberty in the world through the main class blues and violence. Terrorize and exclude anti-queer, deviant, who don't align with your conceptual process, who don't work strategies in the way you want them to, which is emblematic of all the examples you give, which means we've impacted the foundation of your theory.
Is there any way you could send me those analytics?
No, I don't think I have to send analytics.
Can I, see them?
Like,
Can I just look at your laptop?
Like, I don't think I have to show you my analytics. These are if there are any cards, I would have sent them to you, but I don't think I have to send you analytics.
I literally can't, look over your shoulder and then glance at what you wrote.
You can flow.
I have 28 starting now. Did you make a perm to the intro?
To the intro, no. The counter-chirp was suicide bomb, their model of debates, functional permutation. You can have state-centered debates in other rounds, but our methodology is a crucial corrective to those structures.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry, what was the argument you made under assumes debate is ethical? You can check.
At the top,
Yeah.
of top gallery, after the A point, right? Yeah, the abstraction term denying the ability of weight case allows debaters to be able to avoid shame and sort of complicity in this structure.
Sorry, can you speak a little slower?
Sorry, denying the ability to weigh case is something that's violent because it allows debaters to be able to wash away their sort of shame and complicity in the structure of anti-queer violence in this space.
I see. And then, sorry, what was the term you made?
The term, there were multiple.
The term after that. I'm just going
Okay, procedural fairness, it's an half argument because queers are procedurally excluded through psychosis, which denies the ability to actually be able to engage in the content of debate. It's the attempt to saturate debate with more and more information, only ever leads to more violent sort of responses in that knowledge that we develop never actually reflects back to the self.
And that was the psychosis argument you made?
Yeah.
What was your response to tackling the version of the app?
A couple of things. First was the cruel optimism dissent, which is sort of a cross application of the puer evidence. It's essentially that your attempt to be able to...
Right, I understand. Can you do the next one?
Cool. Next, there was the molarity dissent, that the attempt to be able to make debate more and more predictable. Is a hatred of unpredictability and alterity. Our argument is that this space, the world is fundamentally in flux and becoming. If we want that, then the attempt to be able to sort of orient yourself towards a sense of stability, etc., is a denial of existence, which we see that.
That was the molarity argument?
Yeah, that was a molarity, yeah.
Alright, got it. Okay, the I6 minutes, the order is going to be an overview, the app quickly, and then the shell.
You said after we read the show?
Yes. So, yeah, overview, app, shell.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Is everyone ready? Famous you need to think of few essential steps, drops and substance, which means I'll leave substance very quickly, but I'm also winning the theory basis. You conceded 4 reasons for why you don't need to weigh case and then just advance your own belief without interacting with them, which means the strength of the debate there should be very clear. Let's go to case first. First, all I have to do is win some sort of mitigated
Okay. Case T. Everyone good? At the top there are about people trying to be able to reform this area, not warrants enough for you to be able to vote on any considered theory of desire, which is that Korean is always already, which is the view this year, and this was argument on the critique that was a purge. It said that you should cross by here about how the state operates through a mode of respectability policies by forefronting and partnership with certain individuals, and their action to engage in this in sort of respectable and normal ways that you want them to, and that papers over sort of dirtiness to other individuals, people like the Pink Panthers, Kara Walker, or George Jackson. I don't have to reinvent the wheel here, but they're all reasons why our a good survival strategy to be able to create a mode of endurance if you're doing things like Satan. Now, it's a question of how we can be able to carve out sort of spaces for ourselves within those structures to be able to restore any semblance of value life, which is the sort of lens argument that you've dropped in the 2 hours, pretty damn contested because that reason, the way the attempt to be able to saturate debate with more and more information, with more and more political knowledge, does not reflect back to the self, which means that our model to be our is actually a prerequisite claim to even engage in those structures in the first place, because it's key to be able to embody the forms of knowledge that we produce in this space in the first place. Now, you say we're in debate right now, you can see we're in an implosive strategy, uses the forms of the system against self. You say we can be all, you think this is the reason we can blow up the state from within. No, you can see the Kevin Ramble, it gives material examples of how this mode of resistance operates outside of the debate spaces to do things like the Pink Panthers, act out Korean Nation, which all were material examples that take out their sort of people like Malcolm X or food stamps arguments, since they were able to strive for themselves within their own communities of care outside those structures, to be able to provide them for themselves in a way that was not fully optimistic. There's a conceded examples from the 1 year means you shouldn't give them leeway on this. Topicality. They can own this debate without meaning that the values of their speech are worth having, because topicalities and enforcement of those values in entire speech act is filled with the values of fairness, coherent itself in opposition to queerness, which is pushed beyond space and time to constant hostility to these values. And is why 50% trans kids commit suicide in debate. This looks like rumors of queer kids faking and destructive people's pronouns and responding to all queer people with element answers, which means voting after a prerequisite to ever being inclusive towards queer people, voting affirmative is a refusal to align yourself with the expectations of heteronormative realities, to speak queerness back into the resolution, creating a space for students who need to embody their queerness in order to survive. This argument about suicide comparison is not negativity, rather an excavation of this space in the right here, right now. The only way for them to be able to win this space in a case cross-sex argument, you can see the first argument we made about how we're critique the sort of form of debate. We're winning the correct model of debate's unethical. It's a reason why you should be able to weigh the alpha, be able to test it against your mode of communication that tries to be able to say the debate's good. Another topical version of the alpha argument doesn't solve its cruel optimism, which is the arguments I mean above. It's not a question of whether or not those reforms happen, but if they actually create meaningful change. You can see examples from the 1 year about how the state criminalized hate crimes against queer people, only be able to move policing onto black queers. It's true that there's a risk that methodology of political change is bad, and only re-entrenches cycles of violence. The reason why our methodology is good, the switch side arguments generate sense, because we made the reasons why affirming is uniquely necessary to be able to disrupt the sort of normative way in which debate itself has a reputation compulsion of trying to be able to produce images of form that only ever serve to be able to promulgate a violent search for truth and political rationality that we have one is bad, which is the reason why our model of debate is best. Yeah, for sure.
you guys care if I type up the comments, or can I just give it to you all orally?
Oh, we're fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I end up affirming. I think that I'm just gonna kind of walk through a few different things, but so I think in terms of the substance debate, I think that for me is a lot clearer. Half ballot. I think that I get close to an half ballot theory. So I'm gonna start. So I'm gonna start with the substance stuff. So I think that the uniqueness debate for this clearly flows to F, and it's just for me a question of like, what does reformism look like, and does the reformism that you talk about, like, is that successful? But I think that you're just not really answering the core evidence properly, because like I think you should read through it one more time, but it's really good on the questions of what does respectability politics look like for queer people, and what does it mean to be a respectable queer, and what kind of politics does that create? So I think that the evidence is really good about saying that, like, sure, we have these changes that happen for gay people, but that happens on the literal same days that we pass policies that exclude large amounts of other people. Like, we'll have problems with the Voting Rights Act and other stuff like that. So for me, it's not even like that it's a persuasive reformism argument, or like reformism can't work. For me, it's a very persuasive argument that respectability politics is like really fucked up, and that like being queer and using respectability politics allows for marginalization of other people. And I feel like the best arguments that I'm seeing from the AF are these examples that, like, how can you deny the experiences of these policy makers? How can you deny the experiences of all these people that have like put their lives into making change? Well, he can deny their experiences by saying they engage in respectability politics, that they engage in the state in a way that they care about themselves and their visibility and making their queerness visible, but in order to do that, they present themselves in a respectable way that doesn't really care about who else kind of falls to the wayside. And I think that for this type of debate, especially when you have me as a judge, this is going to come down to an evidence comparison debate. So I think that if you're, like, I view your empirical examples as evidence, but I also view his cards as evidence. So when it comes down to an evidence comparison debate, I think that his arguments just contain the answers that you need to have. Other things on substance. You make the argument that people rely on the state. I don't think that there's a link to this disadvantage, because I don't see his strategy as like, it's not like burn down the state or something like that. I don't understand why this means, like, sure, people rely on the state, but the uniqueness question that you conceded is already that like the state is bad and that we need to repair something. So I think if you want to go for this argument, you need to have some type of uniqueness question that you're head on, or you need to have some kind of like inherency or like difference in the advocacy and framing and like what his advocacy looks like and why that needs to generate this link. So then from there I end up going to the fairness debate. And I think that there's two problems. I think that one of the problems is that you allow the neg to conflate a lot of the stuff on respectability politics from the politics flow to the theory flow. Because like I think that you're making good responses in cross-sects and you're asking questions about like what does engagement in debate look like, what does engagement in politics look like, and they're definitely different. Debate is different than politics, but you allow for him to get away with a lot of things that like that are like just cross applications of the respectability politics. I think if you give me a clear delineation of like here's how engagement in debate could be reformist, or here's how you can use the topic and not use respectability politics, I think that would create like a very good answer. But that's not really the analysis that I'm getting in the tune-up. So the arguments that I end up looking at specifically are this argument that there's a topical version of the app. My problem with this one is that you let him get away with the fact that like this still is respectability politics. Like this seems to feed into the cruel optimism arguments that like, and this is the problem, that if you don't let him conflate what the topical version of the app is with respectability politics, it can get you further. But basically he's just saying that, you know, if you have like HIV policies, who are we making visible, what type of queerness is visible, versus how can we be disruptive within the system. And like I don't think this is a great response, and I think that you could use this topical version of the app, but I just don't think that you're putting like the time and effort into this argument. And I think it's also true for the other two arguments, like the switch side debate is a good argument. It seems that I can weigh the app here. Oh, so in terms of like your arguments for why you're using first, your argument like the pre-fiat and post-fiat conflation, to me that's just a fiat is illusory argument. So your argument to me functionally is I shouldn't evaluate any pre-fiat argument. But at the point where there's like the role of the ballot is conceded, there's a lot of discussion on like the uniqueness question of debate, like the uniqueness question is that like fairness doesn't exist for queer people, so that if the framing issue is fairness, then like what does it mean for you to delineate between a pre-fiat and post-fiat impact and say that he has a pre-fiat impact and you don't have a pre-fiat impact? I think that there's just not, like if you were to really have a pre-fiat versus post-fiat debate, it wouldn't look like this, like to me. So if you were to really have that debate, you would have a delineation of like, here's what the obligation of the judge is, here's why the obligation of the judge can't be to liberate queer people. And I think that's different than a pre-fiat versus post-fiat argument, because your impacts to me operate on the very same level, like your fairness and structural oppression that's caused by fairness versus the structural oppression that's caused by anti-queerness in debate. So for me, I don't understand why a pre-fiat versus post-fiat distinction would create any of that type of difference. And to me, it just reads as like a fiat is illusory. And I'm like, so what? It doesn't seem like he's using fiat, or it doesn't seem like he's using pre-fiat in a way that's also like different than what you're doing. So at that point, I look at the topical version of the app, I look at the switch side debate is a good argument, but it seems that I can weigh the app here, because you're saying that he can't read this on the app, he can only read it on the net. But you have these arguments out of switch side debate and why it's good, but you're not doing any weighing. Like, if this really is an impact to oppression, if you're saying that like us having, like closed minds and not being able to like rethink possibilities because we're not doing switch side debate is bad, I don't understand why there's no weighing coming into 2NR, like how you would compare that against the app. Because I think that paradigmatically he's winning all the issues that let me weigh the app against this, which means that you need to be doing that weighing in 2NR. I think that the winning 2NR is for you to go for the switch side debate. It's a good argument, and the argument about how he can shift out of what you say, and then this unfairness argument is a type of structural oppression. But I'm not getting the comparison of this type. He has this large uniqueness evidence that he starts the 1AR and the 2AR with, that is like anti-queerness in debate structurally excludes so many people. So at that point, how do I compare your impacts from switch side debate excluding people, or being able to prevent exclusion of people, creating like new opinions, and him being able to shift out of what you say? Like, how does that exclude you? How does that? And like, there's no norm setting argument. There's none of like the typical things that you use in theory, and I think all of those will kind of like help you out. So in short, I think my RFD comes down to on substance, I think that respectability politics isn't really answered, and all of your evidence is kind of answered by the respectability politics claims. And then on theory, I think that there's a conflation of how uniqueness works, but you let him get away with that, and then there's just no weighing of the impacts that you actually get access to at the bottom of the 2NR.
I have a question. Did you think at the end of the debate that fairness came first? Like, how did you evaluate the two conceded reasons for why fairness is key to challenging oppression, and the second argument that it's constitutive because we were not racist journalists to reject arguments?
I mean, so I kind of buy that. I think that the problem is that fairness is something that's problematized in the sense that like there are different types of fairness. Like, you talk about fairness, but he also talks about fairness, and that's what I mean by weighing. It's not like fairness first means that only the negative impacts matter, because to me, all of the AF impacts are framed as fairness impacts. So I don't understand why you saying fairness first is something that leverages your impacts and not his impacts.
Okay, and then for the respectability of the politics argument, like I get why on substance it would be like clear that he won that argument, but how did you evaluate the responsibility to the application of that to theory, like theory as not being a form of respectability politics?
Well, it's not for all theories, it's just for like the topical version of the app. If your topical version of the app is respectability politics, then how good is your topical version of the app?
Okay.
Because you have to win that your topical version of the app can resolve all of the links that he talks about, or that, if there's certain benefits to the three of us, like for us having this discussion, like if he really did read this HIV app, like would we be able to get all of these benefits? And like the way that his app is structured around this discussion of respectability politics, I think that app can't necessarily access that.
And how do you evaluate the switch side debate solves? You can read everything on the neg.
So I think like there's some solvency, but I think he can also weigh the app because you're saying he can't read the app in this round, right?
Right, but like how did you like evaluate the claim that like it needs to be an app as opposed to like having it as a K? Like
So-
what if you warned that it like had to be an app?
So I guess I don't have that. I think I didn't fully understand like the large defensive argument, and I think it also just could be contextualized better that like if he can read it on the neg, that's also all of the options. Because like my understanding is like he wouldn't have been able to read the app in this round, so we wouldn't have had this round. So it's just a question of like, can I weigh the discourse that he had? Can I weigh the discourse that he had against the benefits that you have from switch side debate? But I also think that switch side debate was your winning argument. I think that you just don't do the weighing analysis. Like you don't explain what the unfairness is that you can solve for in switch side debate, or you don't explain like how we can change our paradigms or our understandings of the world through switch side debate, and then compare that against his discussion. And I think you're right that the defensive argument is plausible. I just don't have it like as like a clear weighing mechanism. That's like he gets no offense from his app because you would get the exact same impact from the neg. Like I don't have it as fleshed out.